everyone. Welcome back. We missed you so much. We're back in the studio. I know it's been a long time. We thank you for your patience. We did put a post out on social media kind of talking about why we were MIA for a little bit. If you haven't seen that, that means you're not following us on social media. So that means you better get on it. Pause it right now or stop this podcast and go follow us on Colombian Influence.
Nice.
We're on Twitter, Facebook. We have our website, Instagram. I mean, you can find us anywhere.
TikTok. We're on TikTok. And
we got some good shit on there. So check us out. Definitely check us out. Anyway, welcome back. We are back with our book club series of the Primal Wound.
Yes. So we are actually, just to show you guys, on part 3 of Primal Wound, which luckily is getting into the section about healing, which
Woo!
I don't know about you, but
we all need that.
We all need that. So we're going to be diving into that today, into the first chapter on the section about healing. And this was something that I noted just right away, being like, I think Colombian Influence, just like learning and exploring this is going to be really beneficial for us. So some of the things that they talk about just in this intro is just like addressing the first 2 sections, being like, well, what do we do with this information? Mm-hmm. So that's going to be kind of translating to how they address everything and like what people are supposed to do, you know, as far as being adoptees or being part of that triad. And also just what should be avoided, what should be done differently.
Ooh, good brief on that one.
Yeah,
that was
so
nice.
There's, I don't know, you can read the intro, obviously. It's like about 2 pages or so total. But that's kind of just the gist about everything. As far as the actual first chapter, we're going to be on chapter 9, which is titled In the Best Interest of the Child. And the chapter is broken down into the following sections, titled In the Beginning, The Need for a Conscious Decision, The Flip Side of Exploitation, Time for a New Approach, The Need for Adoptive Parents, and Children Make a Difference. So, I guess let's dive in.
And just for new listeners, we kind of just pick out chapters or sections in this chapter that really like stick out to us,
right,
that we want to focus on. We're not going through the whole book, obviously, kind of hence the book club. We're just giving our views on it, but I think we had some right in the beginning.
Well, and one thing I kind of wanted to address on page 111, actually, just in that first paragraph, is the quote, adoption should serve the children who need parents, not the childless couples who seek children. And I think that that's something that is, currently we're recording this during National Adoption Awareness Month. And that's something that a lot of adoptees are trying to flip the script on, is just the fact that adoption is currently kind of skewed as far as the intentions behind it and everything. So, as far as the National Adoption Awareness Month, that's obviously something that people need to flip the script on. And I don't think a lot of people, or I don't want to say a lot of people, a lot of adoptive parents,
especially. Or even non-adoptees,
Oh, yeah, especially. They don't really realize that, because a lot of the time with, let's say, the conversation around abortion, it's always just like, well, just to do, like, put up your child for adoption. It's like, that shouldn't be an alternative, and this shouldn't be the reason. Like, it's just, there's a lot to that conversation, which I don't really feel like this chapter right now, but
yeah, but I think this chapter is perfect for the National Adoption Awareness Month.
Absolutely.
Because it goes directly into a lot of things that we'll obviously touch base on, but kind of how it's a business, and that's what we do not want it to be.
Exactly. Well, then let's dive into that. Obviously, I went over that quote just on page 111. Moving on to page 112. Let's see, did you have anything?
I think there's a big section in there, and I just put down it's so hard for all parties, because I think a lot of the times, and what our podcast is mainly for, is adoptees, adult adoptees, because we're forgotten. Adoption is a lifelong process, and that is something we will have for the rest of our lives and continue to heal from and work through, but it does affect all parties of the triad.
Yep.
So I just put that there. I don't really know in depth, or there wasn't anything in depth on like what I underlined necessarily, but just that it's a big deal for all parties. And I think that's really different for me, because I really just focus on myself a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
And kind of my own healing.
And I think that that's understanding. The one thing that on page 112, just kind of talking about the approach to adoption, is talking about open adoption, which I used to have a very different thought of Well, I guess I never really had a huge opinion about it. It was more so like, oh, that's an interesting take. I wonder if that would be more beneficial.
Yes.
But, right?
Thank
but
you for
now
saying that.
I'm kind of
Yeah.
like, I think, like they say at the top of page 112 that despite the advantages, many problems within the system are beginning to surface, which I think it's just, there's a lot of cases where it's open to begin with and then closes, which I think would probably be more scarring.
Yes.
Than
I wrote, is it beneficial?
Yeah, I did. I just wrote like open that becomes closed. It's just, you know, also just on that page saying like this should have a calming effect on the birth mother during her pregnancy, which is understandable. But then that also adds like a lot of this chapter discusses the fact that like that would then have an effect on like the relationship often that the birth mother has with the adoptive parents skews everything.
Yes.
And part of what we discussed on the bottom of page 112 is talking about the
ritual.
Yeah, the thing that feels like when we say ritual, they say ceremony, but it's like, you know, birth mothers and adoptees sometimes I guess they do say ritual. Say ritual ceremony that make the two sets of parents feel better at the time. Although one glance at the birth mother's face usually reveals more agony than peace for her.
And it says like this ritual is like technically handing over the baby to, like with candles and soft spoken words, to the adoptive parents.
Which feels so weird. Like
that feels just, yeah.
I know you and I both felt really icky reading that and just being like, ooh, this is weird. And they even say in the book they've described these rituals as sick, inhuman, grotesque, gross, human sacrifice, and ritual sacrifice. And it's intended to be good, but I don't know.
I haven't met really any adoptees who would think that would be like...
I don't know that I actually know anybody in an open adoption. Like, I'm not sure that that's something that I'm aware of personally.
I do, but I don't know them to like a deep enough level where I can like understand like how does that make you feel, things like that.
I think I have where it's the adoption is maybe between friends, family, stuff like that, but it's never been these situations where it's a person you know. Like on, I feel like that's the kind of thing that they address in shows. Like if, you know, from the show way back when Friends, you know, that was one that Monica and Chandler like couldn't conceive and then they went to adoption, which now is like, ooh, problematic. Anna Faris plays the actress that is the birth mother and they have this relationship. And looking back on it now, it's like, it's really weird because I feel like reading this especially, it's like going into the second section, I believe, the need for a conscious decision. It says right at the top, like, many birth mothers are in almost total denial about giving up their babies and how that's going to affect them.
I put that underlined too.
I believe that. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's, first of all, especially in an open adoption, you're just
and
kind of like,
like,
I'll be involved. Like, what does that really mean?
Yeah, and it just like almost breaks my heart because it's like, wow, I've said this before in past episodes, kind of with the birth mom, but like, they're an adult too, so they understand all of these different decisions that they're making at that time. It's just the feelings have to be so prominent, like with what they're going through and then after. Like I just couldn't even imagine. So that just kind of breaks my heart for like all of the things and traumas they're going through that I've never even thought of.
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of that, I guess just kind of going back to the open adoption thing, I'm not sure why I'm so stuck on that, but right now it's just like thinking about that and like the way that those sometimes turn from open to closed, I feel like generally based on hearsay with stuff, it's usually the adoptive parent's choice to do that, to close it.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
I would think so.
Even if it was a circumstance based on the fact that maybe the birth mother is not fit and is, you know, showing a negative either example or, you know, is having certain issues that are affecting her ability to be involved, that I think would still be the choice of the adoptive parents, I would imagine. And that I think would be both incredibly scarring, probably more so than if you started with closed.
Right.
And I think it would be more, you know, scarring for both birth mother and the child. For sure.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And we've actually had someone we've interviewed early on in our podcast who was an old coworker who was adopted through family.
Yep.
So, you know, like, things like that, you know, the whole time, too. And there's still those traumas, there's still those unknowns and healings that you have to go through. So I think no matter the, like, decision or type, closed or open, it's all different types of healing and trauma that each adoptee goes through. And I think that's just very interesting to see all different sides of it and how, in a sense, we all kind of come together with the same type of what ifs and questions that come into play.
Right. Right. I totally agree. I think the only other thing I want to mention there is just that talking more openly, like adoptive parents or hopeful adoptive parents, is being very honest about the reason they want to adopt.
Yes.
And saying, like, you know what? If it is literally just your, yearning for wanting to have a child, admit that, instead of like talking about how, what do they say? Altruistic hocus pocus about rescuing a child from unknown terrible fate. Like, that's not something to BS. And don't be that rescuer.
Yeah,
that's
for the child's well-being. Well, like, are you really thinking about all of the detailed like traumas and things that are going to come with it? Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so then let's see. Going to page 114, we're talking about the flip side of exploitation. Yes. What did you have? Or what stuck out to you? Did you have anything in this particular section?
I just had that, like, some birth mothers seem more willing to give their child to the highest bidder in terms of money and perks than they do what might be best for the child. And I was just like, that's so sad, because that does happen. And, like, thankfully for me, like, I don't think that's what happened. Like, I guess I don't really know, because I know a lot of orphanages and different agencies and attorneys, especially. I think that happens a lot with attorneys, attorney agencies. Like, they always do the best for them, but, like, what's best for the child? No one ever really thinks about what effects is this going to have on the child. So that really stuck out to me in that section. Completely just, biased on what's going to benefit them for short term and not the baby.
Which makes me question, I mean, can we blame them?
No.
Like, that's
especially
where I'm
if they're
at.
in poverty, like, all of those things, and, like, maybe homeless or anything, like, any type of money.
Exactly. Like, I just,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess this kind of connects. Did you have, I guess, before I move on,
that's kind of all I had there, but I just want to shout out Kate again, because she also talked about this in depth. We bring up Kate in a lot of episodes, but she had
it was so raw and real. It was such a good
it's such an eye-opening interview with us, and she's been such a great supporter. Shout out to you, Kate. But she had a great, like, adoptive parent side of this, and how this is exactly what happened.
Exactly. And I mean, that was in Haiti, but it's also like that, given the system in America, it's like, that happens,
all
like
over.
In the next section, I guess, just linking this in. The next section is time for a new approach. And this kind of discusses the fact that there needs to be a different approach in the business of adoption, which, I hate that there's anything that could be worded that way. That bothers me. But just kind of saying that there should be, they should restructure everything. It should be nonprofit agencies providing adequate pre- and post-adoption counseling for both the birth and adoptive parents. It would assure an impartial setting for adoptions. And I just, again, kind of going back to the whole, like, abortion thing, it's just like, there should be an entity that exists that allows any type of choice to be welcomed with the resources to do so. It's like, because there are a lot of places that put pressure on, no, keep your baby because you're a sinner if you don't. And then this kind of thing happens. And that can, I don't know. I just, like, I can't get over the fact that it's like, I don't think that adoption should be the alternative to abortion.
Right.
I don't believe that that's something that is a healthy thought process. Same within the way it kind of, for some reason, ties me into the fact that, like, a child up for adoption should not be for a parent to fulfill their wishes. It should be based on this child needing a home. Yeah. Those two together, I'm just like...
And that was the first page, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I just, with going right back to that, I was just like, I'm not sure how I feel about that, because it's like, it said, adoption should serve the child or the children who need parents, not the childless couple who's seeking children. I was just like,
which is confusing, because it's almost like, wait, why does it not do both? But it goes back to when you and I have seen certain things we've used to follow on Instagram that were like essentially ads for parents being like, we want a baby. And it's like,
right.
How gross is that when you think about it? Like, that's icky. Like, and I don't like it.
And again, just being open and honest on why you want a baby. Like, is it infertility? Are you healing from these traumas? Because, like, I think this really is really good with the pre and post adoption counseling for birth parents and adoptive parents. I think that would be so beneficial for everyone.
Well, and especially I feel like the birth mother who's especially abandoned. I mean, they're abandoned in the way that they don't have any of those things that correlated with what happened. Like, they don't have the child, they don't have the adoptive parents, unless, again, it's open at the time. But, like, and the child obviously was abandoned in a certain sense, but, like, in this case, it's like, how are those things not supposed to be, I don't know, I guess to be blatant, how is this supposed to be less traumatizing than having an abortion?
Yeah. Ooh.
But I don't, you know,
they're both lifelong. They're both huge decisions. And again, that's why it, like, breaks my heart, because, like, my birth mom has had the secret for her entire, like, or my entire life. So what? 20,
oh my gosh, I forgot that
18 years.
Yeah.
And then here I am wanting to be a part of your life and get to know you and my family and my brother, and he had no idea about me.
That's
so having
wild.
to break that to him, to his father, you know, like, all of these different parts of moving of it, like, I couldn't imagine just having that deep of a secret.
Oh my gosh.
And, like, not knowing what's going to happen with it either. Because she's not going to seek out me. I don't think she ever would.
I don't
And I
don't know how often
I don't
know how often that happens in comparison to adoptees doing that.
I've never thought about that either.
I haven't really
Imagine her reach out to me like, hey, I'm your mom. Like, get out of here,
left
girl.
field. Oh God. Whereas, like,
not ready.
And I think that that's what's so interesting, I guess, going on a tangent, whatever. Like, with adoptees, we have so much out of our control, and then when adoptees finally make that decision to do so, that is the thing that's in their control. That would I would, like, go off the grid if that happened to me. If my birth mother, just
you
thinking
have
about
to
it, I'm like, I will die.
Yes, and I've said this time and time again in our podcast, like, you have to be mentally and physically ready for all of those different what ifs that are going to come and everything that's going to come with it. Like, oh my gosh, I could not even imagine.
Real quick, do a shout out to you for doing that at 18.
I can't believe I did that.
Oh, I'm just like, I can't believe you could do that. Like, I was a mess at 18. I'm a mess at 29. Like,
that's why I just had to rip the Band-Aid off. Like, I'm not going to get any better. Woo.
And I'm just like, I peeked under the Band-Aid. I'm like, nope, we're not healed yet. We're not good.
I think it definitely helped. It helped me heal, but was it a lot? Like, looking back at 18 compared to now, like, woo. That was a lot.
Wow. Anyway.
Back to the book.
Back to the book. We went on a bit of a tangent. Whatever. Kind of on our opinions, but it's fine. Let's see. So there was, I guess, one thing I also just wanted to mention, just for any adoptive parents or hopefuls especially that are listening, at the end of the section, Time for a New Approach, I think that section is just really important for hopeful adoptive parents to read, because even if the agencies and the, like, organizations that run the baby business, sorry, I'm just gonna call it that, it just is.
Yeah.
If that's not gonna change immediately, adoptive parents need to take these things into consideration with how they control it, because in that triad of this happening, they're the ones with the control and the money.
Right.
Yes, it's the agency, but
once
they have the most control out of the triad.
Yeah, once you have the baby, that's all on you.
Well, even before then, to a certain degree, like, if you wanted to make something happen and you're shelling out a bunch of money to this agency, you got some power. The birth mother and the child has negative, like, power. So one thing I wanted to mention at the bottom of that page, 115, is just stated, it is my opinion that the birth mother needs to have some alone time with her baby, whether it's to welcome him into the world or to say goodbye. If both sets of parents then want to have some kind of ceremony, that's fine. So as long as everyone remembers that it is for them. It's not going to diminish the trauma of loss the baby will suffer as a result of his separation from his biological mother. It will not prevent the primal wound. And that's where we kind of get into the rest of this entire, I don't know, part 3, just with the healing.
Yeah.
There's a lot more about that coming up, but this is really just important to just realize and just be like, hey, the birth mother deserves at least this much.
Absolutely.
So just wanted to make mention of that. The next section is going into the need for adoptive parents. And
one more thing on that, like, the birth mother shouldn't necessarily be shamed or like looked down upon because they're making this decision for their child.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And like, I don't know why it just stuck out when you read that, but it's just like that happens all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
which is sad. Like
Bob,
thinking
what
about.
the
I mean,
heck?
I feel like us as adoptees now, we're like, you know, we see the life we would have had. We see the life that we have now. I'm always just saying, like, can you blame them? Like, for literally everything with all of this is just like.
And you know me, I try to see both sides, and I try to like, oh, good side, bad side. Like, I try to see good sides in everybody and kind of what they've gone through. So that's another eye-opening moment for me where I was just like, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Goodness.
Absolutely.
The next one I had was children make a difference. Did you have anything before then?
I had a little bit of something just in the need for adoptive parents. Was just talking about like figuring out, figuring out if they have abandonment issues, which obviously is like different scenarios. If you have that kind of thing, you need to figure that out, because I feel like raising a child with an abandonment issue or trauma, I feel like that's a certain thing that could perpetuate each other personally, just based on like the fact that any friends that I've had with abandonment issues, it's like we start talking about it and it's like, yeah, no, you're right, you get this, and it's just like it doesn't really ever get to a healthy conclusion. It's kind of just just snowballing. So it's like that being raised by a parent with that kind of thing would be, I think, a problem. Again, just kind of spitballing here.
And a lot
I don't
of
know
parents,
that from a scientific
for sure.
But,
most of our facts are just based on what we think and feel.
Exactly.
But also the infertility. I think that's a lot of times of why people want to adopt, because it's like a second option. I hate that, but that's kind of what people's
where we're at, I guess.
Yeah. So I think having to heal and come over, what am I trying to say? Like, overcome that, like understand that's what happened and kind of heal from that also before you start to do the adoption process. It's
mostly
huge.
because of, I think, the expectations you would have for this child, because it's like, this is not at all the same of you conceiving this child and it being your and your partner's DNA. You need to figure that out and realize that before it becomes a resentful thing that you're going to harp on with your child and make their abandonment worse. Thank you.
Yes, Lisa.
I think that kind of concludes that section. The next section being the children make a difference. I want to hear what you have to say
I
about
had stuff at the end of it. So I think you have stuff at the beginning of it. But mine were more just before a couple makes a decision, kind of the same thing of the previous section. The decisions to share their lives with the child, whether it's biologically or adopted, they need to ask themselves if they're willing to put the child's welfare first.
It's a quote I had too.
And children come into the world so tiny and helpless and dependent on these adults and your parents and just like an adolescent. So we owe it to them to do what's best in their interest. And I think that's overlooked so much on adoption, that like luckily like our success stories have been very, like successful. Like they've just been really
uplifting
smooth.
And promising.
Yes, but not everyone.
Wait, hold up. No. They're good with where we're at with what we've done, especially since we started the podcast, but like
it
was a mess. Like,
yeah, it's been
still a mess to a degree.
Super challenging. Absolutely.
It's just like because like obviously we never want to just paint this beautiful picture.
Right. But imagine challenging on top of challenge on top of challenge of maybe, let's say,
despite all that, we have overcome a lot. I think I'm assuming what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just more, if you... I don't even know where I was going with that anymore. I was going to say some shit.
You probably had a really good thought, and now we've lost it forever.
No, that's fine. But mostly just do what's in their best interest, because I think that's overlooked a lot. And even if we've had a good going with, supportive and helpful parents, we've still had all those traumas and challenges. And I think, like what you said, a lot of people don't have that. And I think that's where I just feel very thankful, because I couldn't imagine having that on top of everything else.
Yeah. I think the only last thing I want to mention in this section is blatantly adopted children take more patience and understanding than biological children for the reasons that they've outlined. That's kind of what they just kind of ended with in that particular paragraph. Like, you don't have to pretend that it's not a challenge. It's more harmful to pretend that it's not.
Right.
And I think if you don't think that if there are certain emotional things that you've ignored in your own life and swept under the rug and you've not sought out therapy for it or something, or realize that you as someone, first of all, have faults, but also could benefit from therapy, don't even dare dip your toe into this. It's not for you.
Right.
Like, I as much as I hate the fact that there are children in foster care that don't have a home, I'm like, I don't know. I wouldn't want the complications that adoptees have going into a home that isn't healthy or emotionally well enough to even get us to points like us, where it's like, we had some messy times.
Yeah.
But we've survived. We've gotten through it. We've done a lot of work on it. I can't imagine being the kind of person that's in a home that's either abusive or emotionally neglectful or anything like that.
Exactly where I was getting with my point before. Like,
the one that you forgot.
Yeah, I completely agree on that.
Yeah, I think that is just the most important to remember. And I think that just with the approach that millennials are having as far as children, for instance, a lot more are not wanting to have children, myself included. But also a lot more of them are like, if I'm going to raise a kid, I want to think about the greater good more. And I think that that's a really good approach. It's just the fact that, they need, and I guess millennials are also approaching mental health in a different way anyway, which is great. So it's like, okay, you've probably done your work and probably been in therapy. So great candidate.
Right.
But it's also just, people need to realize this is going to be a challenge. And as an adoptee, I'm not ashamed to say that,
100%. Okay, so I guess we're at the end of the chapter. Overall, how did that make you feel? What are your thoughts? Yeah.
I mostly just felt I felt a lot of empathy for the birth mother, just kind of in general, as well as just the fact that they really get the short end of the stick, in a really crappy way.
Yeah.
Again, just kind of going back to what choice do they have besides the part where we talked about giving to the highest bidder, where an adoption or adoptive parents are providing this, this, and this to get that child. Ugh, I don't like it. So I guess overall, this chapter made me feel kind of icky. But yeah, but also
I kind of agree.
Right? It's just I'm like, ew, don't love it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just kind of reaffirmed the stuff that we didn't necessarily pinpoint at the very beginning of the podcast. And now that we're 2 years in, it's these are the kinds of things that I'm realizing are so important for us to talk about and for people to realize outside of it.
And so common. I think that's what really stuck out to me is I've heard it's a business. I've seen here and there, but that's not how our story went.
Exactly. It's not our firsthand experience.
Yes.
So it's really hard to see that.
Exactly. Reading it and also being in the adoption community,
it's so different now.
Yes. I've seen other people's stories and heard other people's stories that are so hard and so heartbreaking. And I think it just makes me think about how unfair it really is and how neglected the child is already from birth on a lot of different cases. So it just makes me take a step back and just kind of also feel horrible for the birth mom because she's gone through so much.
Yeah. But, of course, this section is about healing. So we'll go over into that. As far as discussing this chapter, I guess as far as the questions that we were talking about, first question being, as an adoptee, how does it make you feel that birth mothers are in almost total denial about how giving up their babies is going to affect them? My follow-up question to that also is do you think that this is the same domestic, international, closed, open?
Completely different. I think it's completely different because all situations are different. Open, I don't know.
I think they'd be more in denial in an open.
Yeah, because like you're
They
still
think
having
it's
that
gonna be-
connection. You might
Exactly.
still get them back. You might, you know,
Mhm.
you still have all of this and that. International clothes, like it's a
They
hard
probably
like
have
you.
faced a lot and
Yeah.
just figured, like, I mean, because I think we were both relinquished within a couple days.
Mhm.
I mean, yours was a little bit different as far as you know. I don't really know.
And who really knows? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And kind of going back to what I was saying about my birth mom, like that's a secret she's kept for so
That's
long.
wild.
Like that's so heavy on
I'm
your
sure had
heart.
some good girlfriends at least that were like
I
the
hope
ones that
so.
knew, because
Because she
those
didn't
would be the ones that I would trust with that
Yeah.
information if it had to be
Right?
secret, hands down.
And she didn't have a family at all. Like her family abandoned her, so it's like, woo, abandonment
Got a
after
double
abandonment
whammy.
after. Here we go,
Jeez.
you know. So I think it's common that they feel denial, and I
Does that make you feel a certain way about as being an adoptee? Like, does it like, is there any sadness, anger, resentment, anything like that where you're like, well, you knew what you were doing? Because I feel like that could be one of the direct ways to go with it.
Interesting question. I would say no.
Do you think that would have been different a couple years ago?
No, I think I was never like mad about that part. It was more just like why was my question.
That's interesting. See, I never questioned why.
Yeah, I
I was
always
like, I get it. Like, that's the one thing that I
Mhm.
get, but it's more so, I guess not necessarily that I feel this way, but it's like, how do you feel that the birth mothers are in almost total denial? It's like, that sucks, because it's like, well, this is a huge decision that
Mhm.
you made. Why do you not understand the consequences of it? However, based on my age now, and the fact that we're closer to our birth mothers in age at that time, zooming on that, freak out for a second. I guess it's like, especially in our birth mothers' positions in a third world country, like being on our own, like, I don't know, that's just a complicated thing. It's like, again, doesn't surprise me, can't blame them.
Right.
But I can see that being something that could be really complicated for adoptees, being like, you made this decision, why are you in denial of it? But it's also because the resources aren't given to get them to talk through it. So, like,
and I think that's the biggest thing. Yep. And maybe it would be different if it was in the States, because we know those resources exist.
Exactly.
Especially now.
Not that they're really available to people that are in poverty, but
that's another
topic
issue.
for another day.
Yeah. But overall,
accessible.
I didn't feel like super bad about it, because I just know like that was your choice. I understand it. It was more just why,
Mm-hmm.
and then you didn't get the support or help you needed, and like you did as best as you could.
And they are the ones that then have to suffer with that alone afterwards. So it's like
literally all alone.
Yeah. Oh God!
After that deep one, let me go to the
next
second
one.
question.
Is just as bad.
So this one was kind of off of page 12. Have other adoptees?
112.
What did I say?
12.
Oh gosh.
Back to page 12. We're talking about the trauma now. No,
Let's
we're
back to page.
We are in the healing,
1.
ma'am.
You're right.
We're healing now.
We are healing. Okay, 112. Excuse me. Have other adoptees heard of the ritual or ceremony of handing over the baby? If yes, how does this make you feel? And have any of our listeners experienced that firsthand?
I would be so interested to hear
Interested to hear that. I've actually looked up some on YouTube, like just kind of curious. Like,
oh my God.
Is this actually a thing? I've never heard of that.
Ah!
I feel gross by that. I don't think I'm like a prize. Like you don't hand me over like a
Oh
trophy.
God, ew.
Yeah, like I feel like I'm an award. Like here you go. Here's this sweet little baby. Like no, don't you dare.
I don't like that.
Yeah, it makes me feel gross inside, and I obviously have not had that firsthand. But before you say anything, I just wanted to say also that when I was in Colombia, where my parents were there to get me, essentially, I was brought down from the staircase. And like handed over. I like just had that like
what? Okay, I never thought of that.
But like I don't think that's a ritual,
no,
a ceremony.
Like
it's not like a ceremony. It's just like what
process?
they do.
I would like to simplify it, or like
I don't like that though.
Casualize it with the. I don't like process either. It reminds me of work.
But I don't like either of it because I technically was handed over as a baby. Yuck.
But I mean,
That's
how
disgusting.
Else would
I know.
you do it though?
Hey,
it's over there.
Go pick it. Crib 3, please.
Here's your number. Take a number.
Oh gosh.
I am making this worse. I'm so sorry.
I don't know if there's a right way, but like I never had a full ceremony, but thinking back to it, like that kind of did happen.
Huh? Because we had the same. So
what were you gonna say?
I don't know. Oh, I remember. Okay, the only thing I can think of. Did you ever watch Teen Mom?
Yeah, I loved that show.
Okay, do you remember Caitlin and Tyler?
Yeah.
They are the ones that...
Are they still going strong?
I think so. They have multiple children now.
Yeah, they do.
But, well, they had an open adoption with Carly. And
saw that.
Carly, and now it's closed, I think. I'm pretty sure it's closed.
Really?
Or it's open. They never see her ever. But anyway, I
It's
remember...
gonna be so confusing.
I know. We need...
Poor thing.
We should do a binge watch of that. And
we should reach out to her.
Okay. But no, I remember watching that. I'm pretty sure I watched it in my freshman dorm of college, and I was like severely emotionally unhinged at that time. So take this with a grain of salt. But I remember watching the episode where she and Tyler like literally hand their child over to these parents, and I sobbed for hours, and I was just like, this is heartbreaking. I think
I sobbed too, just because like I couldn't imagine doing that.
Oh, I know. And
she held her baby for a while and kind of like debated the situation.
They
I think
had a freaking show about her being pregnant with this with a guy. You know, it wasn't like it was just a one and done kind of situation. It was like her long-term boyfriend, which I don't know, as a teenager, whatever. But at the same time, it's like at that time they had made the decision together. Because they were from a bad situation. They're like, we should do this. Gosh. And they did it. And I just remember watching that and being like, and that's probably, again, the closest to a ritual or ceremony that I've, quote unquote, witnessed or whatever, just because I haven't looked that up on YouTube. You're brave.
Yeah. I was like, this cannot be real. But then, like,
oh, and they're on YouTube?
I know.
Who would be like,
and then it made me disgusted that, like, it kind of happened with us. I can't get over that now that I thought about that.
I am just going to try to glaze over it and not think about it ever again.
But we'd love to hear your opinions on those questions. And we will definitely post those on our Instagram and Facebook. Yeah. Other than that, I have no more things on this chapter.
I know. This one, again, getting right into the healing.
Yeah.
Hope it works.
Let us know.
Yeah, just like let us know with those discussion questions if these types of things make you feel any type of way from whatever part of the triad. We're always interested to know. And as always, just to check it out, Primal Wound, Nancy Newton Verrier. You can find it on our bookshop, which you can find on colombianinfluence.com. And then, of course, follow, like, subscribe, rate, review, all the above.
Send us messages of your stories, things that we can talk about, because season 3 is coming out soon for us, which is going to be more based on us and our stories again.
More one-on-one conversations.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We're excited to get back, just kind of us going back to season 1 of how we started off.
Yeah, so, I'm excited. I can't believe we're starting season 3.
I know. So thank you for all your support and love. We appreciate you guys all so much.
Yes. And until next time.
Later.
Goodbye. Bye. I can do that too. God, I can't believe I was irritated today. I wish I practiced tomorrow instead. I feel like